Hi friends! You've watched Lord of the Rings, right? Maybe even read the books? Did you feel like it was hard to engage with the Frodo and Sam side of the story? Maybe you thought it was a little boring in comparison to the other stories going on? That's what this video is about. And today's shout out is to Isaac. If he ever watches this, when he heard I was starting a channel about fantasy characters, his question to me was, can you please tell me why I should care about Frodo and Sam? Yes, I can. And no, it's not just because they are the ones who got the ring to Mordor. They did do that. They are the ones who ultimately defeat Sauron and keep evil from the world. But their story is not very exciting. It's not action-packed like some of the other stories we see in The Lord of the Rings. And theirs is not a story like much of modern fantasy. They don't go on their journey and discover that they have hidden magical abilities. They don't find out that they have royal or divine heritage, and they aren't transported to any magical land. Frodo and Sam are normal, average people who make the decision to do what they can to keep evil from coming into their world. Along the way, they do discover their inner strength that only severe hardship can bring out, something they never would have discovered if they had stayed home and lived their comfy lives. And hobbits do love their creature comforts, don't they? Theirs is a journey very different and very separate from the rest of the Fellowship. In fact, it's told as a completely separate story in the books, but I'll get to that later. They start their journey by thinking they're going on a fun adventure like Bilbo. Frodo would have grown up his entire life hearing the stories of Bilbo's adventures, and now it's his turn. They also keep thinking along the way that once they get a little bit farther, they'll be able to turn around and go home. And that's part of the fun of reading books and watching movies. I get to go on my adventure, and then I get to go home to my comfy couch. And I think Frodo and Sam have this idea in their mind. If I can just get to the Green Dragon, Gandalf will be waiting for me there. He can take the ring the rest of the way. We'll be done. We can drink some ale and then go back home. Then they have to go a little bit farther. They meet Strider. They head to Rivendell. If we can just get to Rivendell, the ring will be safe with the elves. We'll be done. We can go home. But real life doesn't work this way. So why would a quest to save Middle-earth work this way? There's always another task, always another thing asked of us. No one specifically asked Frodo to take the ring all the way to Mordor, but he knew deep down that it should be him. He was the best one for the job, and he was willing to do it. All that time he had spent looking forward to being done and going home, now he has to make this huge mental shift of, if I really love and value my home, I have to do what I can to keep evil from coming into it. I can't just go home and keep living my comfy life. He has to accept that he's not going home anytime soon. Sam, on the other hand, has no grand illusions of saving the world, or even the Shire, which he does love dearly. He goes on this quest journey thing because what he loves and values is Frodo. He does not want Frodo to go alone. It's not safe to go alone. Take this! Now, I don't know about you, but I was not bored by the Frodo and Sam part of the story during Fellowship of the Ring. Frodo's determination and Sam's devotion to him are seen as important parts of the story. They have to race to get Frodo to Rivendell, and then from Rivendell, they're a company of characters all together. A company who travels together, faces danger together, and fights for each other. There's also no cutting between different groups telling different parts of the story. They're all together. Then at the end of the Fellowship, the group splits up. The Fellowship is broken, and now the story must follow different points of view. Good storytelling should draw you in, and Peter Jackson is generally thought of as a good storyteller, but he did make some choices in how to present the Frodo and Sam part of the story that doesn't really do them any favors in the movies. You might be familiar with the fact that The Lord of the Rings is actually 6 books. Each of the 3 main ones are split into 2, and in The Two Towers and The Return of the King, Sam and Frodo each get their own book. Their journey is slower paced, it's more emotionally charged. They're not part of any exciting battles. It's a slow but sure moving journey towards the end goal. There is forward motion the whole time, and their journey is more about their character growth and discovering how much they need each other to get to the end and to ultimately defeat the Dark Lord. In the movies, we're constantly getting tossed back and forth between the 2 companions and the rest of the Fellowship, between the emotionally charged scenes and the action-packed side of the story, between the Battle of Helm's Deep or Minas Tirith and Frodo and Sam walking. It can be difficult to go from an action scene to then being able to engage in the emotions of the slower part of the story. And that's what we're asked to do during these movies. And in the movies, Frodo and Sam get taken back to Osgiliath? That never happens in the books. Take what's already the slower part of the story, from the forward motion they're able to achieve, pull them backwards, and yes, it's a little difficult to see why you should care what's happening to them. Here's what really struck me on my last read through of The Lord of the Rings, and that's the relationship between Frodo and Sam. That's a relationship that's so incomprehensible to most of us. Who of us has anything in their life like what these two are to each other? Theirs is not your normal friendship. Frodo knows he can implicitly trust Sam, because he can. Only the evil influence of both the ring and Gollum were able to make Frodo's trust for Sam waver at all. And even then, it doesn't last. And he only makes it to the end because of Sam. Sam is absolutely devoted to Frodo. When we see Sam having to make choices about Frodo, it's simply heart-wrenching. That moment after the fight with Shelob where Sam has to decide between staying with Frodo or finish the job with the ring is the hardest thing he's ever had to do in his life. The world could crumple and fall and Sam would never waver in his loyalty. The only reason he could leave Frodo is because it was Frodo's job and he can't disappoint Frodo or allow Frodo to fail, even in death. He knows Frodo would not want evil to overcome the world. And towards the end, when Frodo can't go on, Sam literally picks him up and carries him. He takes on the burden of both Frodo and the ring. If he can't carry the ring, he can carry Frodo. That is an emotional moment. At the very end of the journey, when evil overtakes Frodo and Frodo can't drop the ring in and let it go, Sam is thankfully saved from a choice that I don't know if he would have been able to make. Sam loves Frodo so deeply, he would do anything he could for Frodo. But could he have done what Gollum did and attack and fight Frodo? Because that's what it took to destroy the ring. Gollum had to wrestle Frodo and bite the ring from his finger. Can you honestly imagine Sam doing that to Frodo? Attacking the one he loves to save the world when what he really values and cares about is Frodo himself? I don't know. I don't even know if Tolkien knew the answer to that question, or at the very least, he didn't want to put Sam's character to so harsh a test. But their quest is accomplished. They're done. They can begin their long journey back home. Are any of these things that I said something that you felt while reading about or watching these characters? Let me know. And if there's a character that you would love to hear about, leave me a comment. I'd love to talk about those characters that you care about. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for future updates and future character studies. See you next time. Bye!